how do we age gracefully and maintain our athleticism for as long as possible. A lot of different areas that we could go with this. First and foremost, you build your athletic peak as high as you possibly can. The guys who you think have aged the most gracefully, LeBron James, for sure, probably the best of all time, 39, and he's still in MVP contention. Vince Carter aged really well athletically. Russell Westbrook, I think he's 35 now. He's aged really well athletically. They've all lost a step. Like, let's not get that twisted. They've all lost a step. They've all lost several inches on their vertical jump. But their athletic peak was so high. In your early 30s, you're going to drop one level. And so for them, they went from absolute freak athletes, top 99th percentile. They went from freak athlete to elite athlete. And then in the late 30s, they'll go from elite athlete to great athlete. And then in their early 40s, they'll go from great athlete to good athlete. And then eventually they'll become average athletes. But in your early 30s, everybody is typically going to drop. Sometimes it happens way earlier. Sometimes it's 20s because injuries, poor training, poor lifestyle. Like, there's a lot of reasons why it could happen earlier in your 20s. But I would say if you do everything perfect, then in your 30s, and it's not always 30, it's not always 31, but like 32, 33, 34 is where we typically start to see a drop off, especially in terms of jumping. If your athletic peak is average, you're in the 50th percentile, like you're just fast enough to get blow-bys and you jump just high enough to dunk the basketball, then in your early 30s, when you get that inevitable drop-off, now you're below average. So now you can no longer do the things you used to do. You can no longer get in the lane. You can no longer dunk. And so then the only way you survive at that point is you completely adjust your game. You completely adapt your game and add different things, which is the typical progression for most athletes. However, one consideration is just build as much athleticism as you possibly can in your teens and in your early 20s, because the higher that peak, the more gradual that ball starts rolling downhill. And this goes for longevity training too. When we're talking about, I want to be as healthy as possible at age 80, I want to be healthy and moving well at age 90. Build athleticism at age 20, because it's going to go downhill. But if you're starting all the way up here, it's such a gradual decline. And this has been shown in studies, especially with like bone mass. Like, while our bones are really, really adaptable, and we can make changes probably throughout life, like later in life, but when they're really, really adaptable, it's like your 20s. And so the bone mass that I develop at age 20 is I'm going to be holding on to that. I'm going to be trying to hold on to as much as I can of that when I'm 50, 60, 70. And so a lot of people go into their longevity training too early. They're like, hey, I just want to move well when I'm older, and I just don't want any knee pain. So they're like 20 years old and they're doing like body weight RDLs, and they don't run and jump, and they don't lift, and they don't do anything that actually would be high enough force on their body, high enough stress on their body to create athletic adaptations. And they go into that conservative mode. They go into that longevity training too early. And then the truth is it doesn't prepare you for anything in the short term, because you're not exposing your body to any high forces. But you're really messing yourself up for the long term, because you're not building a reserve. You're not building elite capacity. And while we're the most adaptable, that should actually be the focus. If I want to be athletic at 40, get as athletic as I possibly can at age 20. And that gradual decline is going to look much better, just like it did for Vince, just like it did for Jordan, just like it's looking for LeBron. So that is a huge part of it, right? Don't go into longevity mode too early. We want to keep longevity in mind, so don't do like really stupid stuff in your training. But longevity is not avoiding stress. Like, longevity early on is like, let me gradually apply appropriate stress through plyometrics, through sprinting, through agility, through playing sports, through lifting weights when necessary. So that is step number one, build your athletic peak.